you know Beethoven only used 4 chords to make Für Elise the icon that it is? One of my favorite things is looking at classical music through this lens of harmony, because even though it's not always the case that classical composers were thinking about harmony in that sort of melody chord way that we think about it today, we can still look at it through that lens and we can learn some really interesting things about how harmonically complex some of the most famous pieces are, or aren't, depending on how you want to look at it. And in Für Elise, I mean, this is literally like the most iconic part of this piece is 4 chords, and it sounds like so much more. Check this out. That entire section was just 4 chords. And in fact, the most famous part of this piece, the part that right at the beginning that everybody knows, I mean, you can literally play the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 notes, maybe less, and people are gonna know exactly what you're playing. You could probably just literally go and just leave it there. And people know, oh yeah, that's that Beethoven, oh, that's that classical piece. They might not even know it by name, but like everyone knows that. You know what I mean? So that section alone is 2 chords. It's just 2. Look at this. We outlined the entire chord right here, and it is A minor.
A minor.
This piece is written in A minor. Now you'll notice if you look at the key signature, there's a couple interesting things about the key signature actually. First of all, there are no sharps and flats. Well, doesn't that normally mean C major? You'd be absolutely correct. But, as we know, major and minor are relatives of each other if we're talking about the right ones. And in the case of C major, its relative minor is A, right? To find any relative minor of any major key, simply drop a minor third, or go to the 6th degree of the major scale, start that same exact bank of notes from that point, and you will have the natural minor scale from the note you played. In this case, it's A. A minor, or a natural minor, a relative minor, has no sharps or flats, and that's what we're dealing with here. The other interesting thing is that this is written in 3/8. Now, perhaps more commonly we would expect to see something written in 3/4. Could this be written in 3/4 and use 8th notes instead of 16th notes written in 3/8? Would it mathematically work out to be the same thing? The short answer is yes. So then why did Beethoven write this in 3/8? Well, the answer is it's somewhat of an implication about the feel, right? So Beethoven wanted this to feel more lighter and less like a waltz. It's almost like there's a subtlety to understanding the difference between 3/8, 3/4, and even something like 3/2, right? Because imagine if this was written as 3 half notes per measure, and instead of 16th notes, we'd be looking at quarter notes. Wow, what a weird thing that would be. But here's the difference, right? So 3/2 would be like the most broad feeling. Like if you wanted something really slow feeling, even though it could be played at the same tempo, it's kind of telling us as the musician, how should we be interpreting this, right? It's less about, could you make 3/2 and 3/4 feel the same as this 3/8? Yes, of course you could, right? And mathematically it would work just fine. But our job is to look at the music that Beethoven wrote and interpret what he wanted us to do. What was he getting at when he wrote it in 3/8? And the answer is, it's supposed to feel lighter on its feet and perhaps a little more quicker, however you want to describe it, elegant maybe? I'm not really sure what the best word is, but that is a deliberate choice that Beethoven made to give us information as the musician how to actually play this. But from a harmonic standpoint, we have, and I love how this is so obvious, right? Measure 3, or the second full measure, I suppose, it literally just outlines the full A minor chord. And now the next bar, tell me that's not the most clear arpeggiation of a chord you've ever seen, right? E major. A minor to E major. What is that relationship? It's the one chord, because we said we are in A minor, if I could play a scale, which I clearly can't. A minor, and then the 5 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is going to be E. This entire first section is literally just A minor, E major, A minor, right? But we said it's 4 chords. We said 4 chords make up the classic, iconic sound of Für Elise. After we play that section 2 times, we go to our second ending, and that's when we have our pickup into the second section. Let's take a look at that. Now this, very clearly a C major chord. And that, I think, is interesting because we said that A minor is the relative minor of C major, right? So what are we doing when we move to C major in that second section? We are simply keeping the exact same sound palette, but we're flipping it to its major relative. And that kind of does a lot to open up. It makes this whole thing brighter. We've established a very dark tone. That's kind of the vibe of the first section. But now we're going to say, you know what? After all that darkness, I think we need to lighten it up a little bit. So let's go ahead and play our remaining 2 chords. The first measure of the second section outlines C major. Then we go to our other chord, G major. Notice that is the exact same relationship as A minor to E major. It's the exact same relationship, but it is the relative major of it. Right? Look at those relationships. So A minor is the relative minor of C major. And E, although we're not playing an E minor here, it's very close to being the relative. It is a relative of G major. Just instead of, that would be the perfect relative. Like G major, its relative minor is E minor, but we've made it major in this case. Okay? And that's because it's a 5 chord. So our 5 chords are usually major chords, often with the dominant 7th, right? And we can hear that when we resolve, whether we do it in our original A minor here by going, that feels very resolved, right? 5, 1. We can do the same thing in C, right? Exact same relationship, up a minor 3rd, and in a major key instead of a minor key. So these 2 sections are very closely related, but that makes up our 4 chords. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, but there's more going on. We play this. There's clearly a chord change. There's a chord change. And another one. But here's the thing, we've already played those 2 chords, right? So we go to C major, G major, A minor. That's our home bass chord. We've already done that. That's not new. And then here we only get the 1 and the 5, but we can assume this is going to be major as well, even though we never hear the G sharp here. We just go octaves. We play the whole thing again. Thumbs are fun. You know, speaking of some of this like navigating, like how to play stuff like that, and actually how to play this entire thing, I'm working on something that I think is incredibly cool and I can't wait to share it with you. And that is, I'm doing full walkthroughs of pieces just like this. I'm talking first note to last note, literally note by note. Let's break it all down and help you figure out how to play it. That's going to be a part of the brand new Better Piano system. And I am here today to announce that we are 1 week away from, it's that time of year again, we are running a massive Black Friday sale. I'm not going to give away everything of what's going to be in it, but I want you to know that that's coming up. There is a link in the description and you can find out more if you want to find out more. But that's going to be launching on Black Friday, and it is going to include things like an entire note-for-note walkthrough of Für Elise as part of the brand new Better Piano system. I cannot wait to tell you more about it. We're going to be talking about that this week because it's coming up. The countdown is on. So if you want more information about that, use the link in the description. It's not available. You can't get it yet. It's not available. Hold your horses. It's not available yet, but it's going to include stuff like this, and I am working You guys, this has been the most insane month. I've never posted daily like this ever. This has been such a cool experiment. It's been a lot of fun for me. Hopefully it's been cool for you if you've been checking out the videos every day this month. But yeah, I just wanted to do something crazy. And here we are now. We're getting to that time of year. We always do something crazy, and this year is no exception. I'm so excited to share what that's going to be, so stay tuned. But I can promise you it is going to include a full note-for-note walkthrough of Für Elise. So if you ever wanted to learn how to play it, that's going to be your key. It's going to be inside of the Better Piano System. Anyways, so that's good. You know, and we're going to be talking about how to navigate all kinds of different things. I feel like this can be one of those things that you always just think of as the melody, but you don't ever count it out. Maybe that's just a me thing, but it was so interesting when I realized that the first is a pickup. Right? So it's 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. For some reason that never like crossed my mind. I never thought about it that way. It's one of those things that sometimes you learn by ear and you just never like go any deeper than that. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's cool. But especially some of these sections later on where it's like, it feels like that goes on forever and you can easily lose track of it. But once you learn how to count through it, it makes it so much easier. That's other stuff that we're also going to cover in the full walkthrough in the Better Piano System. Okay, so let's answer the big question, and that is, well, is this whole thing really just 4 chords? And the answer is no. I'm talking about that sort of beginning iconic part. And then from there, we move on. Our third section introduces new chords after that. So the whole thing isn't quite 4 chords, but I just find it so incredible that Beethoven was writing such simple harmony to get such incredible beauty out of what is really not that much information, you know? And it all just depends on like how we break up chords and how we arpeggiate things and how we draw a melody out, right? So after we go through those sections, we finally get to something that is actually new. Well, is it really though? Because let's see. That's a C chord. It's a dominant C chord, which we haven't played a C as a dominant. Maybe we can consider that new. F is new. F we haven't played yet. That's another C, and then we get into our B flat. I always love that line. That's a tricky little measure right there, right? And because we wrote it in 3/8, here we wind up with 30-second notes. This is such a classic because, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it is so simple. But when you're a beginner, you can learn these beautiful sections that sound so satisfying, and they sound much more complicated than they actually are to play. Such a beautiful line, right? Then we go back to the main section, and when we go through that, we finally wind up on this real dark build-up section. Woo! Oh yeah! How mean is that? ends just on A. No chord. So yeah, I mean, there's some stuff in the whole piece is not 4 chords, but it just boggles my mind that like when you go back and you look at so many of these iconic pieces, it took so little harmony to really make them absolutely iconic. If you've never tried to tackle this piece, even if you're a beginner, let me tell you, it is very, very doable. I'd love the opportunity to help you out. Follow that link in the description below, and you can find out a little more, as well as get a reminder when that sale goes live, because yeah, we're gonna be doing an entire walkthrough inside the course, which I'm super excited about. And it's not gonna be the only piece that we do an entire walkthrough of. So that is something super exciting that I can't wait to share more with you about. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks for tuning into the month of music, and we'll see you tomorrow.